Good evening, and welcome to the Town of Los Gatos Planning Commission meeting of Wednesday, May 13th, 2015. The meeting is now called to order. I am substituting tonight for Chair Birch. Mr. Paulson or Ms. Prevetti, would you please call the roll?
Certainly. Vice Chair Badami? Here. Commissioner O'Donnell?
Here.
Commissioner Hanson?
Here.
Commissioner Kane?
Here.
And Commissioners Erickson and Birch are excused.
Would everyone please stand and join Commissioner Hanson as she leads us with the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Town of Los Gatos strongly encourages active participation in the public process. We welcome written comments submitted prior to a meeting, as well as verbal communications spoken during a meeting. Verbal communications pertaining to agenda items can be spoken during the public hearing, and comments not pertaining to an agenda item can be spoken during the verbal communications period. If you plan on speaking tonight, please complete a speaker card located on the back of the benches where you're seated, and you can return the card to a staff member located to my left. Minutes for the April 22nd, 2015 meeting of the Commission were distributed in our packets. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes?
I'll move the adoption of the minutes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Kane seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. We have a written communication, and that would be desk item Exhibit 17. Have the commissioners had an opportunity to review the desk item?
Yes.
We have no continuances this evening, so I will move on to subcommittee reports. In addition to their service on the Planning Commission, members of the Commission serve on various town committees. Do we have any reports this evening from commissioners? Commissioner Kane.
In addition to meeting on the fourth Wednesday of the month, the Historic Preservation Committee held a special meeting on the 11th because our agenda from the prior meeting was got us into the 2-hour limit. So we held another 2-hour meeting on Monday. We had an applicant for demo addition remodel to 45 Broadway. That was approved insofar as the Historic Preservation Committee's approval authority. It's limited. It's not go ahead and do it. From a historic standpoint, we approved that aspect. Same with 371 Pennsylvania. The same with 205 University. The case regarding 145 Glenridge was interesting, and I'm going to pass to Commissioner O'Donnell because he makes a good point on what the applicant had versus what we had.
Well, in that matter, we had considered it before, and we had approved certain plans, and it turns out that there was some disagreement about what had been approved and what had not been approved, and the as-builts were pursuant to a plan that we had never approved, but in part was approved by staff as minor, but it turned out you couldn't figure out what was done because we didn't have two complete sets of drawings. So previously the applicant had an architect, and at the moment the applicant, who is the owner, is the builder too. So it got a little confusing. So we've simply kicked it back and said we want to have what the town has approved, because that includes what we approved and what the staff made minor changes to. And then we want to compare that to what in fact was built, because obviously if something of material was not approved, that will cause some problems. But the initial problem is just trying to figure out who's on first. So that's what we did on Monday.
We also were requested by staff and I suppose the town council to take a look at the historic demolition policy regarding fines. And we broke it into two pieces. One is the policy procedure for what is opposed or in disagreement with the policy on what somebody does to an historic structure. And the other subcommittee is looking at the actual dollar amounts, and we are out searching for best practices. And if staff can supplement that, it would be great, because we were surprised to find that other towns do not have such definitive language as we do. I think what we have to do is use staff's knowledge to find towns with special historic districts and what kind of protection they provide. So we're going to have those reports ready for our meeting, not at the end of this month, but the month after that, June 24, I think. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioners. We've now come to the verbal communications period of our meeting tonight, and I have one speaker card from John Shepherdson. Mr. Shepherdson, come to the podium, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. First comment, it was nice to see on the North 40 that largely the council kept to a 35-foot cap. So I was glad to see that they followed O'Donnell on that. I think it's real important. Secondly, I had a question for staff in terms of unfunded road repairs. I saw a chart with the traffic mitigation when that came up for hearing last year, and there was a chart at the end, and I don't have a sense of exactly how much are the unfunded road repair work. I do understand that in terms of employee liabilities, it's, I don't know, 40 or 50 million. Next point, if we have the overhead. While we're waiting for that, this is like a rough sort of Venn diagram, but in white there, I have the benefits of the Los Gatos Police Department, local control, local officers. I call it a Mayberry RFD, sort of, you know, Billy, who's 16 years old, and you can talk to him and say, hey, you know, warn him rather than cite him. Small town character, tradition, perhaps an idea, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. A downside to that is the risk of, I think, of losing the town because of so much of our resources are directed to the police department, 41%. Thank you. On the other side, we have potential benefits of going with the sheriff. If we say it's $4 million a year, it's $100 million in 25 years. Control, Saratoga and Cupertino are deemed safer according to safewives.com. The sheriff's 911 calls are overall faster, comparing Cupertino with Los Gatos. And of course, we can rehire our officers into the sheriff's department, so it's not like we're just, you know, hatchet people, so to speak. They have a helicopter SWAT, bomb team, dogs, which I understand recently helped catch a suspect, and then the other benefits there. And then Dave Knapp, who sat as our town manager, was also in Cupertino. He's publicly come out and said he's a convert to the benefits of the sheriff's department. And then if there's disagreement, and there's some that are strong towards just keeping our police department, a middle ground is to have a third-party review through management partners. Maybe it's $150,000. At least they're going to find that amount of efficiencies. And then we get the apples-to-apples comparison, and we can perhaps do a survey to find out what the public wants. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shepherdson. Our only public hearing tonight is a continuance of 375 Knowles Drive, lots 1 through 33, architecture and site applications 2-14-080 through S-14-112. The applicant is requesting approval to demolish the existing site improvements, construct new site improvements, and build 33 single-family residences on property zoned O-PD. May I have a show of hands from the commissioners who have visited the site? Are there any disclosures by a commissioner for this item? Seeing none. Ms. Savage, I understand you'll be giving the staff report this evening.
Good evening, Vice Chair and Commissioners. This project was previously reviewed by you on April 8th and was continued with specific direction. Just to go back and give you a little history, the plan development for the total site was approved by Town Council with the condition that the architecture and site applications come back to the Planning Commission for further refinement of the architecture. The direction that you provided on April 8th included revising the elevations, the mass, including addressing the consultant comments, and providing some information regarding the bicycle and pedestrian pathways within the development. The applicant and staff met with our architectural consultant to go over the potential refinements of the architecture. The architectural consultant favored details for Tuscan architecture beyond and outside of just doing full walls of stone. Details of Tuscan architecture that he favored as opposed to full walls of stone included roof colors to provide delineation within the roof, stone around the openings, which the applicant has provided and provided in previous elevations, exposed and or enhanced rafters, and the applicant has also chose to do some pop-outs with some stone to add some stone to those Tuscan elevations. The applicant submitted revised plans on April 27th, which you have included with your staff report. Now, the pop-outs that they have proposed, the architectural consultant was in favor of those and the limited amount of stone that those pop-outs provided. The issue with those pop-outs tonight, from staff's point of view, is that they do add square footage. Now, the square footage that is added to those elevations or to those floor plans is minimal, and the applicant does have the opportunity to take a few inches off the floor plan to make up for that square footage. It can be difficult to look at that pop out as adding square footage, but our town code does measure square footage from the exterior of the wall. This concludes staff presentation, and staff is available for any questions.
I have a question for you. So the plan development ordinance, as approved by council, limited the amount of square footage. So if we don't reduce somewhat for the pop-outs, it would need to be amended and submitted to council. Is that correct?
Yes, and thank you for that clarification.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Can you give us sort of an orders of magnitude, how much of an increase it is in square footage?
Plan 1 is less than 20 square feet, and so that's why staff has considered the applicant's flexibility and minor flexibility if they're willing to take a few inches off the floor plan elsewhere.
I'm just wondering, too, is there a point when it is such a minor change that it really is not a substantive change? In deciding whether it goes back to council, I don't know how close we have to get. If it were 2 inches off, would it have to go back to council? If it's 20 inches off, does it have to go back to? So I don't know what the staff believes, but it strikes me that there is some de minimis addition that you wouldn't have to bullocks up the works with. So maybe I can ask senior staff for some opinions on that.
I defer to Ms. Savage, but I believe the plan development actually has specific square footage and says that the square footage cannot be increased. So the option for the applicant is to either reduce the square footage to offset the pop-out square footage on either the first or second floor, or they could request to modify the plan development to change those square footages. With the ordinance, staff does not believe we have any flexibility on that element. There have been other plan developments in town that also have set maximum square footages. And so this one specifically has a maximum, which is, I believe, referenced back to the development plans, but Ms. Savage probably has some more detailed information on that.
Mr. Paulson is correct, and the distinction with the pop-out and adding square footage is that the architectural consultant, after consulting with him and asking if it was possible for the applicant to remove those pop-outs and remove that extra stone, the architectural consultant felt that the pop-outs were important with the stone to enhance the architecture, to make it more compelling to a Tuscan style. Therefore, staff would recommend that the pop-outs remain, but does not believe that we can add square footage without revising the plan development, and therefore we should reduce the square footage elsewhere on the floor plan.
Then I'm confused because we're telling the applicant, you must increase the square footage. If you say you got to put the pop-outs in, other than going back and changing something, my understanding of the architect's role is he's supposed to make comments on the architecture. I don't believe I've not been aware of any situation where the architect can tell us he wants some square footage reductions. We can talk about mass and that kind of thing. But I've never seen any situation where the architect said, you got to lose 10 square feet. And so what I find interesting is if the architect thinks it's very important to have the pop-outs, we don't have to follow that advice. I just find it a bad example of government if one has to go back for this minor thing. And one way around that is to say, forget the pop-outs.
Madam Chair, if I may, there is a very specific condition in the approved plan development, condition 11, housing size. No additional square footage shall be permitted for any of the new residences. So that's pretty firm language. And I think to Commissioner O'Donnell's point, I think we've been working with the applicant to find solutions to address architecture. One solution that staff is agreeable to is the notion of the pop-out. And so we, and I think probably we'll definitely want to hear from the applicant in terms of is there ability with the floor plan to make these adjustments to maintain the square footage. If it is viable for the applicant, then I think we do have a path forward. If it's not viable, then I think your point is well taken, and we would certainly prefer to work within the approved plan development zoning, so that way we wouldn't need to go back to council. But I think some of this discussion we need to wait to hear from the applicant himself.
I agree.
Thank you, Ms. Pravetti, for the clarification. Commissioner Hanson?
I have a question for staff. It is about the traffic, and it's related to the comment letter that we got from the neighbor that lived across the street. And I was looking specifically at the requirements for approving the architectural and site application that's in our town code 29.20.150. And it says here that we need to consider traffic safety and traffic congestion. And I thought, believe it was Ms. Hadar who wrote a letter, had talked about the construction issues, which I think are already documented in your the conditions of approval. What wasn't in there was this issue of traffic coming out onto Knowles Avenue. That's a very, very, very busy road, and having 33 houses come out of Knowles and turn left onto Knowles when it's 1 block away from Winchester is a serious, serious traffic safety concern. And I wonder how we can address that.
So the traffic was reviewed and thoroughly with a traffic study through the plan development process. So at that level, the traffic was reviewed, but not at the architecture and site application, given that it was already reviewed. The traffic study at that time did not require a write-in and write-out of the project, but staff could offer a condition to be placed within the conditions of approval for the architecture and site applications for the Parks and Public Works Director to consider a write-in and write-out, and whether that would be compatible with the area.
Okay, I think that would help.
Thank you. Commissioner Kane?
In the minutes of the meeting where we addressed this case previously, there was a motion to do this, and it was denied, and there was a motion to do that, and it passed. But it doesn't say what the applicant was asked to do. And that might be helpful, because I went back to see what exactly happened at the meeting. What is helpful is in staff's discussion on the remarks, and I'll make this a question. The Planning Commission may request refinement of the architecture which is in their purview. And then you outline 3 things that we asked them to do. So I just want to see if I can cut to the chase. The Commission directed the applicant to refine the elevations. In your opinion, did they?
Yes.
The Commission asked the applicant to revise the mass of the structure. In your opinion, did they?
The mass has not changed, but the applicant does address the mass in their response to the Planning Commission.
Third was to provide a description of the bicycle pedestrian accommodations. In your opinion, have they done that?
Yes.
I looked at the drawing, and I didn't see a differentiation on the lines that were used to show the pathways. Are those lines to serve both pedestrians and bicycles?
The lines provided with your staff report on the pedestrian and bicycle master plan for the site do represent both pedestrians and bicycles. However, the applicant will discuss that matter further this evening.
Thank you. And I wanted to support the commissioner who talked about the letter from Ms. Hadar. I hadn't thought about that at all, but I want to thank her for the letter on questioning the safety of making a left-hand turn onto Knowles. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I believe Commissioner Talasvor also asked that materials be supplied at the hearing as well. So I'm going to hope that we have a complete set of materials for viewing. Commissioner Hanson?
Just a comment, and I'll comment to the applicant, but I mean, I when we asked for a description of the complete, treatment for bicycle and pedestrians, what we got is not that. So I guess I'll bring that up when the applicant presents, but I'm still looking for more information on that point. I have another question for staff. At the housing element presentation to Town Council that was approved, I watched the notes. I do understand that the Town Council did accept all of the recommendations from the Planning Commission.
For further studies, so they're not yet in place. So
Okay.
certain things like considering ground floor bedrooms and other things, those aren't yet in the town code policies, but the council did accept that they would be considered through strategic goals in June, which means they'll then decide whether or not they're going to ask us to pursue them and create policy around those.
All right, so a decision has yet to be made on that, other than that there's a go-ahead to look at it.
At least look at it, yes.
Any further questions? Thank you, Ms. Savage. We will now open the public portion of the hearing and give the applicant's team 5 minutes to address the commission. I have 2 speaker cards. I have Mark Tersini and I have Lori Moffett-Felberg. Please come to the podium.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. Mark Tersini, 111 Lasoon Court, Los Gatos. I am the applicant for this project, and with me this evening is Jennifer Besmer with Taylor Morrison Homes, and along with us tonight as well, the principal architects, Don Ruthroth, Lori Feldberg, Doug Cummins, and our civil engineer is Pete Smith. And Dr. Beverly Bryant's here as well if anybody had additional questions with respect to our neighborhood outreach, but I didn't hear that this evening. I really appreciate staff's overview of the last commission hearing that we had, and Commissioner Kane, appreciate you identifying what it is that we were required to address. So I'm going to stop my comments. I'm going to invite Lori Feldberg, principal architect with the Dahlin Group, to walk you through exactly what modifications were made. But I'm going to also just leave with you so we don't have to wrestle with this. When we sell square footage, we sell square footage, interior wall, conditioned space, paint to paint. But we're not going to be wrestling over 18 square feet this evening. We'll modify the homes to adjust to that square footage. So the home square footage is fine. We'd love to be able to address the bicycle and path at the appropriate time. But let me bring Ms. Feldberg up this evening. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Mark. Good evening, Commission. And I'm going to go really quickly because you have seen this before, so I'm going to go ahead and go past the site plan. Just to reorient everybody, they're obviously Capri Drive, Knowles, and our small little community here. So this plan I find very interesting because it shows the mixing of the different home styles. There's the 3 different styles of architecture. And as staff noted, this was a very collaborative process with staff and the consulting architect for the town that we met several times over the course of this effort and have worked predominantly on the Tuscan elevations. Again, we've got the private yards, private outdoor space. We have 2 different common areas for recreation and gardening, things like that. And then let's get right to the changes. So this is the current streetscape. You can see here the key map where this view is located, right off of Knowles. And this indicates the changes that were made. Now this is all coming down to a head. We've been working with the staff and the consulting architect. We've gotten to the point where we're down to the fine tuning. And so, as staff noted, we've added stone in what we call a pop-out here. We've changed the fencing detail. In fact, we drove right past this fence on the way here tonight, so I was pleased to see that in execution in your town is very appropriate detail. And you can see we've changed the fencing back here. Same thing here. This is the view from Knowles. And again, you can see the changes we've made, the modifications, fencing changes to open up the top, add greater detail. Again, this is one of those pop-outs. And essentially what this is, you can see the window is still back here at the wall face. This is just additional architectural relief to create places for the stone to turn inside. There's no floor space. But as Mark indicated, we are happy to, we'll tinker with the square footages to make sure that as measured by your code, they meet exactly what was in the PD permit. That's not a problem. We can go ahead and do that. Again, additional stone here. And then the other thing that we talked to Mr. Cannon about was adding additional things like rafter tails to give additional delineation to the roof. The roof colors is where we changed up the look and patterning of the roof. So there's additional color break and gives the feeling of texture within the field as there's more variation within the colors. That's another refinement. And then here again, this is the view from Capri here at the entrance. And here you can see again the modifications. Again, the fencing opens it up. So you have that texture to the fences, the exposed rafter tails. Oh, and I'm down to 30 seconds.
Yes.
So the last thing I wanted to leave you with is we appreciate the collaborative process we've gone through with staff and your consulting architect. And as he notes in his letter on page 8, that he has no other concerns or recommendations to the architecture as it stands before you tonight. So we're looking forward to your support and moving forward with the project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Felberg. Are there any questions? Commissioner Kane?
The picture you have, A4.14, brings to mind the parking. The car that's parked in the picture is like one of 3 slots. How many parking spaces are there in the development other than driveways?
Okay, I will get that number. Okay, so let me go back to the site plan. Oh, our civil engineer is going to step to the we have 2-car garages for all of the homes, so there's 2 cars inside, and then we have driveways. Full. I can't quite see it on that plan. But it's approximately 32? It's approximately 32 in addition to the 2-car garages. He's going to check.
32 spots other than the driveways and the garage?
In addition to the garages.
No, I want to know how many parking spaces there are other than driveways and garages in the development.
Other than garages and driveways. Oh.
In other words, visitors or a third car. 17.
17. So we have the 2 cars in each garage, plus cars in driveways, plus the 17. Plus public streets.
See, that's where I was going with it. I didn't count 17. I only counted half of that, so maybe I should get my glasses checked. But it looked like there'd be a lot of parking out on Knowles and out on Capri. Is that by design, or is that presumed that's what folks would do? I counted like 5 spots on that whole stretch. 3 over there.
Okay. Sir, can you identify yourself for the record? And
Pete Smith, Charles Davidson Company.
Use a mic, please.
with the mic, thank you. If you could repeat that, please, and I'll need a speaker card.
Sure. Pete Smith, Charles Davidson Company. We're the civil engineers.
Thank you. And I'm going to interrupt for just one moment because I believe Mr. Paulson would like to add some comments.
For Mr. Kane, if you look at sheet C 2.1,
That's what I'm looking at.
right, so the 17 spaces are delineated in the lower, and Ms. Savage, do you have that sheet you can put up?
There are 3 parking spaces located here. There's, I believe, 8, 7 spaces located here, 3 here, and 4 here, for a total of 17 spaces. So again, that's 3 parking spaces here, 7 parallel spaces here, 3 parallel spaces here, and then 4 perpendicular spaces here.
Thank you.
If I could ask staff, is there anything we can do with the parking at this point? I believe our purview is the architecture.
Your purview is the architecture, and I believe if Ms. Savage can check the PD plans to confirm the ratio or the number of spaces that were approved as part of the plan development.
The site plan on the overhead in your plan does reflect what was approved with the plan development.
Thank you. If the applicant could step back up to the podium, I have a question, unless other commissioners do. Thank you for upgrading the shutters to wood, Mr. Tersini. Our residential design guidelines stress using high-quality materials, especially those that would be consistent with the architectural style chosen. So you have Tuscan Mediterranean, which usually you see clay roofs instead of concrete or cement. So on page 3 of the staff report, there's a comment that you believe that clay would require more maintenance. Can you explain that?
I can. Clay tile roofs, when they're stepped on, putting up Christmas decorations, going up and working on moving a sheet metal flashing if it happens to blow in the wind on a roof. Anytime you step on a clay tile roof, you'll crack that clay tile roof and it needs to be replaced. So it is a very, very delicate roof material. The roof material that's being proposed today would be a concrete material that would be varied in color.
Would you agree that a clay tile could also crack? A cement concrete tile would also crack if there was a weight of a person on it?
No, actually, I don't. I'm not being argumentative, but they can withstand quite a bit of foot pressure on them. We've developed projects in the past with a combination of, in the same project, clay tile and concrete tile.
So your argument with the maintenance has to do with somebody's weight that might break the tile. What is the maintenance that's involved?
Cleaning the gutters as a maintenance on a home that would require someone to stand on a roof's edge. As I mentioned, installing of Christmas lights on an upper balcony area would require standing on one's roof.
Thank you. Commissioner Hanson?
So I don't know if it's you or someone else that could talk about the bicycle and pedestrian issues.
Happy to do so. I actually have a device that could be put in the computer that will actually show the bicycle pedestrian pathway area.
Okay.
I want to address it. Maybe I didn't answer the question clearly the last time I was asked by Commissioner Telesforth on where do the kids ride their bikes. And I suggested that the kids may ride their bikes in the street. And these are small streets, and that's what kids do. I've come to find out, I reside in the town of Los Gatos, but I was able to ask our planner on what are the requirements for riding bikes. And under the age of 18, kids can ride bikes on the sidewalks. So what you're going to see here on our pedestrian and bike pathway will be a combination of colored lines of both red and blue indicating walking and bicycle travel for the kids in that in the project itself. The adults obviously will get their bike out of the garage. They may decide to ride over to the park course or the creek trail directly, or they may walk their bike out to Knowles before getting on Knowles or Capri and going out to the bike trail. But so the bicycle and pedestrian pathway, if it's up now, we've got it broken out to showing. If you can go up to the there's a little legend there. I want to say, well, pretty simple. It's the red is the bicycle pathway, and the blue is demarcation of the pedestrian walkway. If you can drop that slide back down again, we're showing the pedestrian walkway around Lot J, which is the community garden area. Thank you. And then also along Lot H, you can see the pedestrian walkway between the, in blue, between lots 6 through 8, or excuse me, 4 to 8. So that's how we have it delineated.
Can I ask you a question? The children that live in this development, what schools will they go to?
I'd like to bring Dr. Beverly Bryant up to answer that question because she spent quite a bit of time there, if I could.
Okay, well, before she even comes up, so since I'm involved with Los Gatos Safe Routes to School, where I was going with this was I'm thinking about a family living in the development. Their child wants to walk or bike to school. And reasonably, given the way the plan development ordinance is constructed, we would only reasonably held you responsible for the safe route within the development coming out to Knowles, and maybe a little bit of that based on the, what was in the requirements. So I was looking at what I saw here, and first of all, it wasn't clear to me where the sidewalks were until I looked at the stormwater plan instead of the bike plan, because I wanted to start with that, where were the sidewalks, and I think these drawings are where the bikes are, but there's actually streets and cars will be driving through this development. So then, what happens to the kids when they need to cross an intersection within the development? Is there? I mean, I realize it's an interior to the development, but is there a crosswalk or some indication that people will be crossing the street when a car's basically coming out and going to work? That's the kind of stuff that I was looking for. Maybe I should have asked for more specific stuff, but I was trying to map out for myself how the child was going to come from whatever unit all the way out to Capri or Knowles or wherever they're going to go to their school.
Sure. Commissioner Hanson, maybe you can be clear to me as far as what area that you'd be concerned about the kids crossing, and I can address that. But to answer, we don't have crosswalks, but we do introduce some decorative or stamped paving. So I may make the suggestion that we would introduce some stamped paving at that particular area to delineate a crossing area for the street.
Well, let me just take Market Street. There's a private drive for Lot F. Someone lives in Unit 4. What is the best route for them to come out to go to school? And let's suppose that they have to go out Knowles, because I do believe one of the elementary schools is out Knowles going, at least the middle school, Rolling Hills is that way. So I'm looking at them coming from Lot F. And there's no sidewalk on that particular court, so they need to walk down the court to the end, and there's a sidewalk there, but it's not continuous once you get to parcel 2. And then when they have to come down Market Street, they have to cross again, and there's no sidewalk on the eastern side of that because of all the cars parked there. And then there's no, then they have to also cross the street for parcel 1, School Street. So I was just looking for something that was continuous. And maybe there's signage. I realize it's inside a development, and maybe it's too much to ask to have crosswalks and stuff. But I worry about their safety, and I'd want to know that they would know exactly how to get to school.
Right. Let me address the Lot 4 going out to Capri. I believe the child in that case would walk his bike out to the sidewalk area that's right in front of lot number 1. So walk your bike out there and then get on your bike and ride in that location. In the interior of the project, when you're crossing School Street, in that location there, again, it would be recommended for the child to get off the bike and walk across that and look for any cars coming before going there. If it's needed, we can actually put, as I suggest, some stamped concrete there that would give an indication of a crossing area, if that would help.
I think that would make a big difference, and I'm worried about pedestrians as well.
I understand, and
Yeah.
I think that's a fine and appropriate suggestion. Thank you.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
A question was asked earlier about a left turn, and we haven't discussed that yet. So I understand that staff, particularly in the past, looked at that question. So if you were coming out, School Street, and you needed to turn left, or is it right? No, you need it right if you're going to go to the junior high school, I assume. And so you only turn left if you wanted to go down to Winchester. So there's been some discussion about how difficult that might be and how safe it might be. And I take it when staff, and you dealt with the staff's traffic people, could you tell us a little bit more of why that was not of concern to the staff?
Well, that's a very good question, Commissioner O'Donnell. I can't answer why it's not a concern for staff, but I can just be real clear that we're comfortable with a right out, going out onto Knowles. So right in and right out, even though it's not a requirement of the traffic analysis. So if one wants to go back out to Winchester Boulevard, they can go to Capri and then use the signal light there at Capri. So I don't see it as an issue at all.
All right, I'll later ask staff to see what their thinking was, but I didn't get the feeling the staff would object to that either if you said right turn only.
Correct. Thank you.
Mr. Tersini, did you bring the concrete tile samples as indicated in the staff report on page 3?
I will defer to Doug Cummings whether or not he brought a sample. I think he brought a color material board that would indicate the colors for the roof tile. They are here. Thank you. I'll stand corrected that they were brought here. I don't believe so, Commissioner Kane.
Did you?
We also, excuse me, Madam Chair, we also brought a sample of the wood shutter that's in behind you there, and also a sample of the window that we propose to use for the project.
How about the stucco?
Did not bring a sample of the stucco. The requirement for us is a smooth stucco finish on the exterior of the homes, and we've agreed to doing a smooth stucco finish.
Thank you for that clarification.
Oh, I'm sorry. See, that's when you bring a whole team of folks. They did bring some stucco sample.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any further questions from commissioners? Commissioner Hanson?
I did want to hear about the schools. I mean, I'm assuming the middle school is Rolling Hills, but I wanted to know about the elementary and the high school too.
Great, let me have
to get the whole picture.
Dr. Beverly Bryant come up. Thank you.
Well, that's just for the display, I assume.
Is there any way to put this up, up onto the screen? I don't know. No, okay.
Ms. Baker, you'll need to fill out a speaker card for us.
I will fill out a speaker card. Do you want me to just talk now, and then
Yes, please.
I'll be happy to do it. I'm Dr. Beverly Bryant. I live at 16940 Placer Oaks Road in Los Gatos. I've been involved with this project since just about the beginning, and my job was the neighbor relations, and also I dealt directly with the school districts. One of the first things we did when we approached this project, knowing that it was not the Los Gatos school system and it was going to be in Campbell, I called. I'm a former educator, so it wasn't hard to do. And I called the school district and I said, you know, we'd like to meet with you. And we met with the superintendent at the Campbell Union School District. It's a K-8 district, and they have, you know, elementary schools and middle schools and so on. And we met with him, and then I did spend a lot of time on the phone. I never actually face-to-face talked to the principal of the high school district, but that was fine, and they were comfortable. And I had done some numbers based on what we had from the estimations of how Los Gatos calculates, you know, what a development's going to look like, how many homes are going to be, and what the enrollments are going to be. And I had some numbers, and I think we came into under 10. It was like 7.9 students or 8.7 students or something, which of course you'd roll up. rather than down. And I said, these are the numbers that I've got, but I don't know if they're your numbers. And he looked at them and he said, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. I think this is exactly what we would do. He talked to his business manager because they're involved in that and they were comfortable. Now, as far as what the schools are, there is a school, as you know, on Par that is now a charter school for the district, and it's very much in demand, as charter schools very often are. And behind that school, interfacing, and I don't know what the street is over there, but the two schools are sort of back to back to each other, is the elementary school. So we were very happy about that because we thought, well, this is the kind of thing that more and more parents are either walking their kids to school or putting their kids on Razor scooters, my neighbors do, on Placer Oaks, and take their kids to school. And they cross with the children if they're young, and I assume by the time they're in 4th or 5th grade, they're able to ride themselves. So we felt very comfortable that the turning into the school would be okay. The school district was happy with the numbers that we had, and they anticipated growth, as they always do, so they were not concerned about us coming in and making this a residential parcel. As far as the school district for the middle school, I think it's Campbell Middle School that the kids will go to for that particular thing. And then for the high school, it's Westmont, so that's how it will flesh out.
I'm not aware of a middle school called Campbell Union.
I'm sorry.
You're talking
I'm
about the
looking
school
at the
district, right?
Here it's Campbell Middle School, I'm sorry.
Campbell Middle School.
Campbell Middle School, I said it incorrectly. It's all the Campbell Union School District, which is quite
Right.
very big, as you well know, probably, a big school district and a good one.
So you're saying that the elementary school is within walking distance of
Yes,
this
ma'am,
development?
it definitely is. In fact, I would love it. I mean, if I were moving in there today and my children were young, it would be really cool because they'd be really on quite safe sidewalked streets.
And they don't have to go out to Nels or Winchester to access their school?
Well, they can go back through the development to Capri and then
To
go
Capri,
Capri
yeah.
to Par, and then Par, there
So they can go
are
the
big
back way.
time crosswalks there right about Nordall Hall. You know where that is.
Yeah.
And then so they can cross, and I think they can walk if they're not going to the charter school, which they might not, of course, because they go to the real elementary school, the other elementary school. Excuse me. I know I'm on television right now. They would walk all the way down Capri, cross Par, go down to Capri, and then turn left on whatever street it is, and I can look it up. But anyway, I feel very comfortable. It's a very good, safe route to school for those kids.
For the elementary students, okay. And the middle school, do you have an indication where that is relative to the
Well,
development?
it is actually, as I look at it on my iPad right now, I did not drive over there, but it is it is just to the right of Morgan Park, and there is, I think there are passages under there to get there. I suspect that the district has figured that out in terms of getting kids. It will be seen from, the perspective of the school district. Our project will be seen as a contiguous part of the Par Avenue neighborhood. So all of our children, the few that we have, who are going to the middle school will be traveling the same paths and routes that way.
They're just going a little bit farther, so they're not going to need to go on the busy street.
I don't think they'll be
Nels,
out, I mean, they may
Pollard.
be out on Winchester, I'm not sure, but
Okay.
I don't know what the transportation, I never, very frankly, we didn't get into transportation details with the school district. What we were talking to them about was enrollment numbers, when the project would be built, and when they could anticipate our kids coming in.
Okay, I hope you understand my question, because, that's what we're asked to consider for this architectural and site application is traffic safety, which includes the children getting to
We
school.
felt very
Yeah.
comfortable, and you already heard about the right business. We'd figured that out early on. I'm a no left turn lady. I agree with whatever you've suggested, and Mr. Ido Hadar has suggested. So we are really cognizant of the fact that the safety is important, and those are old streets, and they're sidewalked streets, so we feel that is good, too.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for asking the question.
Thank you, Ms. Bryant. Any further questions of Ms. Bryant? Thank you.
I'll fill out.
I do have a question for Mr. Tersini. At the last hearing, there was discussion that you emulated your project after the Bella Vista plan development on Winchester. So my question to you is, can you elaborate on the architectural qualities of that project as they relate to yours?
Sure. I'd be happy to do so. And what I was referring to on the Bella Vista was actually made the comment that when I was out there taking photographs of that particular project, had noted that there were some children driving or riding their bikes in the middle of the street as I was taking the photographs. But I've since visited the site several times after our last Planning Commission meeting here. I was really trying to address the sidewalks that were in that particular development, and the width of those sidewalks. And in fact, in a couple areas they narrow down to about a 3-foot wide walkway. And there are also some streets that don't have sidewalks, similar to our street pattern here. The stucco is for the most part is a smooth trowel stucco. They do have a little bit of more of a detail, a little bit of a bump out in the stucco treatment. I was trying to check whether or not those were wood shutters or not, but I didn't want to tap on the wood shutter because I was afraid that somebody might spook somebody because I can't tell. I really can't tell wood from the new composite materials that are being used today, but I was very curious on that. And just looking at the overall setbacks, those homes are quite tight to the street in some areas, but it's a very, very nice project. The streets are tight, narrow streets, and we have some smaller streets ourselves. So I think that would be really the comparison between the two projects.
Can you provide any input on the clay tile roof that they have?
I can't provide any input on that.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you, Mr. Tersini. Commissioner Kane?
At our last meeting, Commissioner Hanson was talking about master bedrooms on the first floor, and I don't know what we got on that. I don't know that that's within our purview currently, but have you given it any further consideration?
I have, and again, sometimes when you reflect on what did you say, well, how did you answer the question? We weren't proposing master bedrooms on the ground floor. The plans do call for a bedroom on the ground floor. When I suggested that the homes would be good for young families and tech workers and also empty nesters, I could be an empty nester. My children are of an age now, I could be an empty nester. I do have a AARP card, but I'm able to go up and down the stairs. So I wasn't referring to this as being more for someone that's just looking for that ground floor ground floor master bedroom. So that's what I'm trying to get to is we do have a bedroom on the ground floor, but typically in this type of family arrangements, the master bedroom is where the kids want to be as well. So you're at the same, but it would accommodate someone having an elderly folk or somebody visiting and having a ground floor and having their own space.
Commissioner Hanson?
I still think that it's a non-starter for selling to people that are downsizing. So, I mean, you're basically just saying that you're not intending to sell to that market. Since that's the most significant growing population in Los Gatos, you're basically building a development that isn't suited well for the actual population needs of Los Gatos.
If I could ask a question of staff, is this within our purview? To make recommendations? Should we come to a motion or conditions of approval with the design?
It's not until the council has the discussion that they've committed to have as part of the housing element adoption.
So it's premature.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you, Mr. Tersini.
Great, thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to your favorable approval this evening. We're looking forward to starting this project as soon as we can get through the site improvement plan approval and the building permit approval. We're ready to go. Thank you.
We will now invite comments from members of the public. I have 2 speaker cards. Ido Hadar, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. You will have 3 minutes. When the yellow light comes on, you have 30 seconds left.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, I was referred to earlier as Ms. Hadar, which is fine. I've been called worse. It's okay. So my point regarding traffic and transportation was submitted, and I think there was earlier discussion, and so I don't want to waste your time and repeat the point. I want to make myself available for conversation and reiterate just the two aspects that I pointed out earlier. So the two issues were regarding traffic and parking issues during construction. Construction is expected to be fairly lengthy given the plans of the applicant. So I wanted to make sure that conditions are put in place to ensure that traffic and parking during that time is consistent and acceptable to the environment. It sounded in earlier conversation of commissioners that that may have been addressed already in conditions. I apologize if I haven't seen that, but I hope if it's not, that you consider incorporating that. The second aspect is the traffic aspect of left turn, and it sounded, I was pleased to hear in earlier conversation both of commissioners and applicant staff that they're amenable to adjusting and limiting the left turn. I think it's a significant issue if we are talking about 60 to 80 vehicles that may be making a left turn, at least some of them in exactly the tough times. It will have significant impact both for safety as well as congestion on a critical arteries. So I appreciate the positive comments that I've heard so far tonight, and I just want to make myself available if there are any questions or comments.
Commissioner Kane?
I think the reference to Ms. simply substantiates we've had no communication other than your letter. Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Next up is Peter Smith. Oh, okay. All right, thank you. All right. We will now call the applicant back up to the podium. They have 3 minutes to add any further comments.
I just wanted to take one moment. My name is Jennifer Besmer. I'm with Taylor Morrison, and we will be building the homes that are proposed before you tonight. I just want to give you a little bit of history about Taylor Morrison. We are a company with a lengthy legacy, more than 100 years we've been building homes, and by investing really in only the best markets, in building homes of superior quality, we have really ensured our longevity, and Los Gatos is a huge part of that. We are very excited to be coming to this town to build. Chairman Badami, I hear your concern about clay tile. If you feel more comfortable with conditioning the project to use clay tiles, then we are open to that.
Thank you.
Okay. We feel this is such a wonderful opportunity for us. We love this town. We've partnered with the Tersinis on several other projects, and they've turned out very well. We're excited to get started on this one and build in your lovely town.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Seeing none, we will now close the public portion of the hearing, and I will ask commissioners if they have any questions. Commissioner O'Donnell?
Just a question to staff. On the construction conditions, will you address parking, off-site parking?
Yes. In the conditions of approval for your architecture and site applications, condition number 20 addresses both construction route and parking. The construction traffic shall enter and exit the project site on Capri Drive only, and personal and construction vehicles shall be parked on site only.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Kane?
So that, in fact, complies with or meets the desires of Mr. Hadar?
Correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Unless there are other questions or comments, I'll try a motion.
Okay.
I will move that we approve architecture and site applications S14080 and S14112. The prior action we've taken indicates that an environmental impact report was prepared. Demolition has been approved. The project was found in conformance, is in conformance with the development ordinance, and is in conformance with the residential design guidelines. And my motion would include two changes to the proposal as made, consistent, however, with the applicant's agreement, one of which is that the exit onto Knowles be a right situation instead of allowing for a left turn. And I was going to talk about the construction parking, but that's already covered. So I would only add that one additional condition, which would be that there will be no left turn onto our Knowles. I think that covers what we were concerned with there. So that's the motion.
You said there were two.
Well, I forgot about the construction. We've already covered that. There were 2 points we talked about, and one was construction parking. But since Jennifer's already answered that for us, we're covered on that. So that was it.
Commissioner Kane.
To the maker of the motion, the offer for clay was made. Would you have that be a condition?
Could we ask staff, I guess what I'm concerned about is if I were a homeowner and somebody wanted to put clay up there when in fact concrete is much more durable, we're making a decision for a homeowner which may cost the homeowner money. And we're doing that because some of us feel aesthetically it looks better than concrete. So I guess all I'm trying to find out is whether our aesthetics are consistent with the homeowner's desire not to have excess maintenance. It's true that the home builder has said they would do that, and I appreciate that offer. Maybe that's what we'll want. But I don't think we should just assume that clay versus concrete is a zero-sum game. So I was just wondering if staff has any input from their prior experience, because I don't have any great experience, but I'm trying to find out whether you do on the durability of the concrete tile versus the clay tile.
Commissioner, I'm sorry, Planner Ms. Savage, please go ahead.
Staff does not have any experience with the durability between the two materials. The architectural consultant did mention that the clay tile was certainly more compatible with the Tuscan style, but was amenable to the applicant's proposal that the color of the concrete tile match that of a typical Tuscan roof color, which is more the red clay color. From a staff perspective, our residential design guidelines do support high-quality architecture, and so clay tile would be preferred. However, staff does understand that there is a maintenance issue involved, and so the durability of the concrete tile, staff would be amenable with the architectural requirement that the color match that of clay tiles.
Thank you. That relating to my motion would be that if the three of you, for example, would prefer to have clay, I would certainly add that to my motion. I personally, were I a homeowner there, would rather have concrete, but this shouldn't be a deal breaker.
Well, I believe that there's going to be probably some disagreement over the maintenance and durability, and I happen to have some personal knowledge on the products. So I would disagree, and I would prefer that clay be included in the motion. Commissioner Kane?
Well, I was just thinking, before you said you had knowledge that one was in fact better than the other. For the sake of the motion and the project, would it be of any practical value to leave it up to the Director of Community Development? Or do you want clay? Boom.
I prefer clay, and one of the reasons why is concrete actually fades over time. At least with the clay tile, the color is color fast, and it can last up to 100 years. And not to mention that the surrounding neighborhood, and I actually made a list of the development around it, has clay tile roofs. So we're talking Vasona Station that it's immediately next to, Aventino Netflix, the Knowles Winchester Medical Office Building, the planned developments on Pollard, which would include Rinconada Hills, Arroyo Rinconada, the Bella Vista planned development on Winchester that was used as a role model, the Lark and Winchester office building, which I already mentioned, the Swanson Ford planned development, I believe, is also clay tile, not to mention Courtside.
Well, if I can just break in on the motion. As I said before, I don't have a strong feeling either way. Apparently, the chair does, and I'd be happy to add that to the motion, that both pursuant to the desire of the Planning Commission, but also the offer of the applicant, we would also impose the condition that instead of concrete tile, they use clay tile. So that motion now would have two, so far, would have two amendments.
Commissioner Kane had his hand up first.
Well, is there another amendment? I'm about to second the motion, so why don't you make your amendment?
Would the maker of the motion be willing to add the condition that towards the goal of continuous safety for pedestrian, especially children within the development, to have some kind of stamping on the pathways in between the sidewalks across the streets
Yes,
to indicate that that's a pedestrian throughway?
Absolutely, and that was an offer which I
Okay.
forgot to pick up on, but yes.
Commissioner Kane,
I'll second the amended motion.
do we need to read that back, or are we comfortable with what we heard?
There are only 3 changes, so.
Okay.
No, we don't, but staff does want clarification on pages 3 and 4 of your staff report for this evening. There are additional conditions regarding color scheme and wood shutters.
Oh, yes.
And we would just like to know whether or not you would like to include those 2 items.
Yes.
Yes.
Second.
All right, I will call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Mr. Paulson, are there appeal rights? I don't think we need any here, but I'm going to ask the question.
There are appeal rights. Anyone who's not satisfied with the decision of the Planning Commission can appeal that decision to the Town Council. Forms are available in the clerk's office. There's a fee for filing the appeal, and the appeal must be filed within 10 days.
Thank you. All right. May we have a report from the Director of Community Development?
Yes, first, let me correct the record that Commissioner Talasfor is also an excused absence. Thank you, Commissioner Kane, for showing my my lack there. I apologize. As was mentioned, the Town Council on May 5th did approve and adopt the housing element. They took the recommendations of the Planning Commission as well as the Housing Element Board. They did modify the adequate sites, as some of you may have watched. They reduced the development potential from the North 40 down to 270 units, and then they removed the Oak Rim AHAS site and replaced it with the South Bay site. So with those substitutions, we not only meet our minimum housing allocation, we actually exceed it now by 10 units. We have now submitted our revised housing element and adopted housing element to the state for their consideration. Just before council, we received a letter from housing from the state saying that if the council approved the housing element as recommended by Planning Commission and the Housing Element Advisory Board, then they would see it compliant with state law and would certify. So we anxiously await that final letter. But again, many thanks to the commission and to the members that participated in the Housing Element Advisory Board.
Commissioner Hanson?
Question, I'm pretty sure this is the case, but since they switched the sites, the same condition applies about the affordability for the South Bay site, even though the variance from the original AHAS designation and the Oak Rim would revert back to the current AHAS designation with our specified affordability requirements.
That's correct.
So it would just shift over to the other site.
Right, it's just a substitution.
Okay.
In addition, the council took on an urgency ordinance with respect to water conservation, signaling a target of 25%. Subsequently, the State Water Board adopted a 30% requirement as an urgency ordinance. The council will need to come back in June with a permanent ordinance. So please stay tuned, because this does affect all of us, residents and businesses, as well as the town, and how we manage water here in the community. And then third, the council considered ordinance form of adopting alcohol and entertainment modifications. They unanimously referred the matter back to the policy committee. So we will see how the policy committee wishes to take up this issue, and then I'm sure it will be coming back through the process to Planning Commission and back to Town Council. And that concludes staff's report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pervetti. Do any of the commissioners have an item that they would like to bring to our attention? Commissioner Hanson.
I just wanted to mention that Commissioner Kane and I attended the first ever Safe Routes to School Summit put on by the school district and attended by all 5 of our town council members, and led and helped along by by Mike Wasserman from the County Board of Supervisors, who also brought a bunch of speakers. It was a really, really wonderful event. If any of it becomes fruition in terms of actions in the town, I think it's going to be terrific. But the most important thing is that a cooperative discussion has been started between the school district, the town, the parent volunteers, and the police, and everyone else. So it was a great event.
Thank you, Commissioner Hanson. Any other comments? Commissioner Kane?
I'm
sorry?
sorry, I had one more request. Staff is requesting that we cancel the May 27th meeting of the Planning Commission. We do not have any items for that meeting, and I believe we have an applicant who's requesting continuance of the CVS proposal to a future date, and I look to planner Ms. Savage to fill us in on those details.
Tentatively, at this point, we're looking at the second meeting in June, but it is tentative depending on how quickly they can turn around revised plans.
And because of the continued continuances, at this point, we would be renoticing. So at this point, we do not have a continuance to a date certain. We believe it's prudent to notice all of the interested parties so that way they can participate to their fullest extent.
Thank you, Ms. Parvetti. Commissioner Kane?
I wanted to point out to the chair that if tile roofing was all that safe and dependable, Ben-Hur would have never been made into a movie.
Leave it to you to bring that comment to our attention. Thank you. Anything else? This meeting's adjourned.